Tonight's bold question, was George Zimmerman a good neighbor? He was the neighborhood watch captain before shooting and killing Trayvon Martin. Is he the type of person you want in your neighborhood keeping an eye on things? That is something the jury may have to consider when deciding the case against Zimmerman. And we are much closer to striking a jury in Sanford. 40 potential jurors have survived to the next round of questioning. Tonight, Ryan Smith is standing by with our own in-studio pool of potential jurors. Which 6 will make it onto our jury, and which 6 will be X'd? And would they want George Zimmerman keeping an eye on things in their neighborhood? HLN legal correspondent Gene Casares is in Sanford, Florida, where the actual jury selection is taking place. Also in Sanford, TV's Judge Alex, who will help us understand Florida law tonight. Joining us from New York, Double J, Joey Jackson. In Colorado tonight, the man who represented O.J. Simpson and Charlie Sheen, criminal defense attorney Yale Galanter. Our in-studio experts tonight, picking a jury for the defense, criminal defense attorney Ashley Merchant. Picking a jury for the prosecution, former prosecutor Holly Hughes. Also in studio tonight, prosecutor from Fulton County, Georgia, and the host of Legally Speaking, Kenya Johnson. And we begin tonight with the defendant, George Zimmerman. Neighborhood watch captain on trial for murder. Was he a good neighbor?
This was not a racial incident. This was an incident of a good man trying to do the right thing who, like he had countless times before, called for help.
You got a neighborhood watch person packing a gun on prescription medication, going around trying to say who belongs in the neighborhood and who doesn't.
He's the neighbor that everybody would want to have.
If he's neighborhood watch and call, but don't go try to take the law into your own hands.
I think George had a call of duty. I think he had a call of duty for the neighborhood. And I think he was not going to let another burglary go down on his watch.
But neighborhood watch is neighborhood watch, not neighborhood shoot.
So was George Zimmerman a good neighbor? We're here with our pool of potential jurors. The Zimmerman court has 40. We've got 12. And before the show is done, we'll narrow it down to 6. Now, was he a good neighbor? I saw you shaking your head, Sheila.
He was absolutely not a good neighbor. If you can't walk around your own neighborhood, regardless of your race, your age, it's a problem.
All right, let's take a vote of all of you. Was George Zimmerman a good neighbor, yes or no? All right, a couple no's, couple yeses. Cookie, you say yes. What is a good neighbor?
A good neighbor is somebody who's helpful and ready to be there when you need someone and being kind and generous.
Okay, all right. I want to go back here to one of my no's. You say no as well.
I think that it's good to have someone looking out for you, but if you're going to end up shot, absolutely not a good neighbor. And someone walking around with a gun in your neighborhood is not someone I would want in mine.
Okay, it's a tough issue, Vinny. Your jury's kind of split here.
Yeah, it is. And this is an issue that the jury down in Florida may very well consider in evaluating George Zimmerman and who he was. Speaking of the jury down in Sanford, Florida, jury selection continuing today as the jurors questioned by the attorneys once again.
The story in the media was presented was that he was, I guess, returning home from buying candy at a store, was wearing a hoodie, and when this exchange with Mr. Zimmerman took place.
I have a hard time with cases tried in the media.
You don't believe in that?
I don't see how you get a fair trial if everything has already been slanted against you before you even get your day in court.
The only opinion I form is that it's sad someone lost their life, but that happens all the time.
In terms of sequester, you'll be housed somewhere altogether. And so the question is, would that present a hardship for you?
I am 5 weeks, 5.5 months pregnant. So,
congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm neither one side or the other. And I'm not trying to apply for this job as a juror, just to be clear.
All right, Gene Casares is live in Sanford, Florida tonight where jury selection is taking place. And Gene, the magic number 40 was reached today. What exactly does that mean and what happens tomorrow?
But what that means is they got that number to now go into general voir dire, general questioning. That will start tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock sharp. And Vinny, I've got to tell you that this group of 40, they are so diverse. They're diverse in their thoughts, their feelings, even their opinions on the case. Yes, they do have some opinions, but they say they can set them aside. One juror says he is offended by anyone who has an opinion on this case. The evidence isn't in. Another juror said they were against the marches and the protests. Another juror said, all my friends participated in the marches, but I didn't. Another juror said, I was surprised that they had neighborhood watch activity out there that night. And another juror said that she's got to wait and see the evidence.
All right, Gene, how about you talk about diversity, racial diversity as well among these 40 who have made it to the next round of questioning?
There is racial diversity. There is diversity in age, experience. From what we've heard, it is a really well-rounded group of people. And now, once they go into this general questioning, there can still be strikes for cause because you don't feel a juror is meant for your side. But we're going to see questions, I think, everything from gun rights to racial equality to racial bias, and even if you're a member of your own homeowners association.
All right, we still have a little bit to go in this jury selection, but the most intense part is coming up. Now, our bold question: was George Zimmerman a good neighbor? You know, it's a simple question, but it's not so simple, really, in this case. Let me ask my experts, give me one word to describe what a good neighbor is. Ashley Murch.
Observant.
Holly Hughes.
Diligent.
Kenya, one word to describe a good neighbor.
Responsible.
Gene Casares, one word to describe a good neighbor.
Alert.
Judge Alex, one word.
State Farm is 2 words, so I'll go with considerate.
I knew someone was going to do that. Joey Jackson, one word to describe a good neighbor.
Pleasant.
Yale Galanter, one word to describe a good neighbor.
A good neighbor is concerned.
Ryan Smith, one word to describe a good neighbor.
Accepting.
Accepting. Ryan, let's do this tonight. I want to ask one member of this jury to give me one word. Juror 11, one word to describe a good neighbor.
Thoughtful.
All right, thoughtful answer. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to take you into the evidence room tonight and take you on a tour a little bit later on of Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman's neighborhood. But first, we're going to take a look at, was George Zimmerman a good neighbor? Tonight on HLN After Dark, a rare nighttime tour inside Sanford's retreat at Twin Lakes.
On the sidewalk or in the grass?
In the grassy area. You'll see the area where Trayvon Martin was killed and the road that George Zimmerman was driving down that night. He may have seen it in the dark.
So I backed out. And I parked right about where that sign is in the yard.
In front of the Ford truck?
Yes. And I saw him walking back.
What's going on there, George?
I'm with the Neighborhood Watch, and we've had some burglaries and vandalisms lately. And this gentleman was walking in the neighborhood. I've seen before on trash days, going around picking up trash. I don't know what his deal is.
Is he white, black, or Hispanic?
It's black.
What is he wearing?
He's wearing a black leather jacket, a black bomber hat.
Black, what kind of hat?
Like a bomber hat, like the ones that have the ears, like that you can fold down.
Black leather jacket, black hat, and what else?
And like flannel printed pajama pants.
That was a call from George Zimmerman, Neighborhood Watch captain, on February 2nd, about 3 weeks before the shooting of Trayvon Martin. I'm here in the HLNTV.com evidence room with Kenya Johnson. She's a prosecutor in Fulton County, Georgia. And our bold question is, was George Zimmerman a good neighbor? That's our question. Let's take a listen first to to Ben Crump, who is the attorney for Trayvon Martin's family. He has one opinion about whether or not he was a good neighbor.
George Zimmerman isn't a hero. He's every parent's worst nightmare when you think about it. You got a neighborhood watch person packing a gun on prescription medication, going around trying to say who belongs in the neighborhood and who doesn't. And God help you if that's your teenager who doesn't answer him when he comes up and says, "What are you doing here?"
Now, one of George Zimmerman's actual neighbors, Frank Taffy, has a different viewpoint.
I think George had a call of duty. I think he had a call of duty for the neighborhood. And I think he was not going to let another burglary go down on his watch. Bottom line, same thing I would have done. He was looking out for the safety of his fellow neighbors here.
All right, what does your gut tell you about, was he a good neighbor?
Well, consistency is key here. So I see from the range of reasons that he contacted the police, he consistently called them for every little thing, but he loses some integrity because he doesn't heed the police advice when they tell him not to follow Trayvon.
Okay, so let's take a look at some of those calls that he's made through the years. He made a call about a stray dog. That was one instance where George Zimmerman called as a neighborhood watch. He also called once because there was an alarm that was going off in the neighborhood, right? So if a burglar alarm's going off, it'd be nice to call the police if they haven't responded to it yet. I guess that's a good idea. Over here, he saw some children playing in the street. They like to run ages 4 to 11. Is that a good call to police?
That's up for debate.
Okay, that's up for debate. How about this one? Someone left their garage door open.
Unless there's any other evidence, not really a good reason to call police.
Okay, so that might be overcalling, like the boy who cried wolf. Where else? He also tweeted out, now, our neighborhood watch leads to 4 arrests and burglaries in the RTL. Great job. So I guess if the neighborhood watch, led by George Zimmerman, is getting results, that's a good thing and a good neighbor.
It is, and this is a trend that we're seeing often. Communities are now leading and going to social media. So they tweet concerned neighbors, different things that occur, so it allows the neighbors to be vigilant but not confront the offender.
Okay, so he calls for small things, big things, gets some results, but we know what happened on the night that he shot and killed Trayvon Martin. Ryan, you're with our jury tonight.
Oh, I'm with our potential jury because tonight we're going to, that's right, we're going to pick a jury. Now, we've got 12 potential jurors right here, but just like the Zimmerman case, we are going to get down to 6. So 6 of you are going to get the big red X. Now, here's how it works. Each one of you has filled out a jury questionnaire, and by the way, folks at home, you can fill that out on HLNTV.com for yourself. And then our prosecutor, Holly Hughes, our defense attorney, Ashley Merchant, will point out what makes them want to strike one of our potential jurors. So, Holly, you go first. What do you have on one of our potentials?
One of the questionnaires was filled out. Now, we don't want somebody who's a know-it-all, but we do need a little information. This particular juror filled out almost the entire questionnaire with one-word answers. No, 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 no. They're a bit of a mystery. It makes me think maybe they're hiding something. She's also very young. She's only 21 years old. She does not have a lot of life experience, and I don't know that she would be able to assert herself in the jury room if other people had a differing opinion, because she is so young.
Okay, she's young, she's brief. Who is this juror?
We are looking at juror number 4 tonight.
Oh, and she smiled, saying, "What's wrong with being young and brief?" What do you think?
I understand, but I'm surprised.
Could you have been fair and impartial?
I think so.
The prosecutor maybe shouldn't have struck you, huh? Take this red X right there. Wear it proudly. All right, defense attorney Ashley Merchant, what do you have on one of our jurors?
Well, I see on one of these forms that this juror highlighted unarmed victim when speaking about Trayvon Martin, and that worries me. Also, this potential juror said that George Zimmerman murdered Martin, and I don't like those terminologies, those words that they're using.
Oh, not a good word for the defense. And who is this potential juror?
Juror number 1.
Juror number 1. She smiled proudly. She's like, yeah, that's me.
So I knew that was me.
Okay, so you used the word murder. That's exactly what the defense doesn't want to hear.
And well, that's what he did. I mean, Trayvon was unarmed. If we can't walk around freely, then, I mean, that's a problem. It really is. Everyone would. If you judge everyone based on age and race, everyone will go around.
So you've got your mind made up on this one.
Absolutely. He murdered him.
You surprised that you got the X?
No, I'm not surprised.
Not at all.
But I was honest. I was honest.
Hey, she was honest. That's what you want, right? That's what you want in jury selection. So 2 down, 4 to go. Which 4 are going to get struck from our jury? We'll find out.
We
expect our neighbors to be pleasant and peaceful and even friendly. That's why we want them to be neighborly. At the same time, we want them to be attentive, alert, and concerned. What kind of neighbor was George Zimmerman? Was he the former, or was he overzealous? Was he overprotective, and did he go too far? Those are the questions that'll be on full display as this jury trial begins, and it'll begin soon, so stay tuned.
Our bold question tonight, is George Zimmerman a good neighbor? Check out on how you voted online. 42% saying yes, 58% say no. All right, well, we've gotten rid of 2 of our jurors. Well, they've been excused, right? So we're at 10. Let's get rid of 2 more. Or excuse them, right, Holly?
Okay, yeah.
Who are you getting? What do you have on one of our potentials?
Well, what I have is they're a lawyer, which you'd ever want on your jury because you don't want them taking over. But this particular juror went to law school with defense attorney Ashley Merchant. And I can't take that risk.
How dare you?
I have got to let the lovely number 7 go.
How dare you? I can't believe it. Why didn't you choose another law school?
The Gator Nation's everywhere.
Oh, the Gators. You knew it. So what do you think about being excused from our jury?
I was expecting it.
Okay.
I didn't know Ashley would be here, but I was expecting it because I'm an attorney.
You tell me, why do they always try to kick lawyers off?
I think there's a fear that in the jury room, the lawyers will dominate and control the rest of the jurors and sort of chill their speech by expressing opinions that are seeming to be an expert.
Okay, yeah, lawyers don't want that. Lawyers want to keep the control, right, Ashley Merchant?
Definitely
so
want to keep the
your classmate's
control.
been kicked off. What do you have on one of our potentials?
I don't know. I think I'd keep a Gator lawyer personally, but I have a juror who said, I don't understand how you can be defending yourself when you have a gun in the first place.
Ooh.
Also, that Zimmerman should pay for the decision by being found guilty.
Which potential juror is it?
Number 3.
Number 3. He is not surprised at all. Okay, pretty bold words, but maybe that's just the way you feel.
Absolutely. Trayvon had something to drink and some Skittles. Unless he can really throw those Skittles really hard, he wasn't going to hurt George Zimmerman at all. But that gun, as we can see, definitely did some damage.
So the gun did it for you and all of this.
It for me.
All right. Vinny, we got 2 more to go.
Yeah, and some folks here murmuring about a potential pattern of dismissal by one of the parties. Anyhow, coming up, we're going to take you back to George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin's neighborhood, but you're going to see it unlike you've probably ever seen it before. On After Dark, you'll see what it's like after dark in that neighborhood.
You know, that juror is absolutely right. Lawyers often make it on the panel and rarely make it on the jury. First of all, because they do have a position that gives them some role of leadership in the jury room. Jurors will look up to them for explanations of the law. And that's not the lawyer's job. That's the judge's job. So lawyers, sadly, hardly ever make it on a jury.
And did you have an opportunity to talk to your attorneys about their decisions that they made on these prospective jurors?
Yes, Your Honor.
And are you in agreement with that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Counsel for both sides have agreed that when we got to 40 prospective jurors, that we would begin our regular voir dire examination. And we have those 40, and I'm going to list them to make sure that these are 40 people that are acceptable to you for the pre-qualification, okay?
Yes, Your Honor. Very happy meeting.
George Zimmerman days away from having a jury in his trial, and we're trying to get to our jury right here. 4 have been excused, 2 more to go. So we've got our prosecutor, Holly Hughes. What do you have on one of our potentials?
Well, we've got another attorney on the panel, but even worse, we've got a criminal defense attorney on the panel.
Oh.
And their law partner is also a criminal defense attorney. And as the prosecutor, that's a big no-no.
Oh.
So we're going to have to say goodnight to the lovely number 12.
She knew it. They don't like us. I don't know why.
I think I can be impartial. I think I can hear everything. I think I have to from each side and play devil's advocate. So I think I could do this. I knew it was going to happen, but I'm a little bummed.
Okay. See? You know what? Maybe they just don't understand you. You could have been in there. Maybe you wouldn't be in control.
I would have been in control.
There you go.
I'm vindicated in my choice. See that?
All right, Ashley Burchett for the defense. What do you have?
Well, I've got a prospective juror who said, I still believe, after hearing all the evidence that I've heard, that Zimmerman wrongfully killed a teen and should be convicted.
Oof. All right. Who is this potential juror?
Number 6.
Number 6. Not a lawyer, but a law student. There you go. So, what do you think?
I wasn't surprised at all, and I can't change how I feel about this, so I guess I just not be on the jury.
Okay. Did you ever feel like you could be fair and impartial on this?
I think I could be fair and impartial on it, but I can't change the thoughts that I have about this that I've had since the beginning, so.
All right, there you have it. We've got our jury, Vinny.
Love the honesty. Now, 2 days after shooting Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman walked through his neighborhood with Sanford police and told them his side of what happened that night. But this video was shot during the daytime. We wanted to know what it may have looked like at night, in the dark. So I went down to Sanford, went inside the gated retreat at Twin Lakes for this HLN After Dark exclusive. We put a camera on the hood of our car and drove through the neighborhood at night, the same drive that George Zimmerman said he made. He told police he was on his way to Target.
On the sidewalk or in the grass?
In the grassy area.
Right in the grassy area? Okay.
Yes.
That's about right in front of where the car is?
Yes, sir.
And then you
I drove past him.
Okay.
And I went to the clubhouse.
All right.
Up here on the right-hand side.
This is where everything starts.
Yes.
This is your front yard.
Yep. Right here.
This is where Trayvon Martin is, and this is the street that George Zimmerman is driving down and sees him for the first time. So, what would this look like at night? In this reenactment, we stood in the same spot where George Zimmerman says Trayvon Martin stood on the front lawn in the dark. Zimmerman says he doesn't call police just yet. He continues down the street, all the way down, until he gets to his subdivision's clubhouse. He parked there and made that infamous non-emergency call to police.
That's the clubhouse. Do you know what he's near the clubhouse right now?
Yeah, now he's coming towards me.
Okay, it says on the left-hand side from the clubhouse?
He's running.
He's running? Which way is he running?
Down towards the other entrance of the neighborhood.
Then he walked past me, and he kept looking at my car. And still looking around at the houses and stuff, so then the dispatcher said, where did he go? What direction did he go in? And I said, I don't know. I lost, because he cut down here and made a right.
That's when George Zimmerman says he lost sight of Trayvon Martin. So he says he pulls his vehicle out and gets back on the road.
So I backed out.
All right.
And I parked right about where that sign is in the yard.
In front of the Ford truck?
Yes. And I saw him walking back that way and then cut through the back of the houses.
Now, this is where George Zimmerman says he gets out of his vehicle looking for an address.
And then I thought to get out and look for a street sign.
Right.
I got to about here, and I had a flashlight with me.
Okay.
The flashlight was dead, though. And I looked around, and I didn't see anybody.
Zimmerman says he kept walking down the sidewalk towards the front of those homes to get an address. And on the way back...
And I was walking back to my truck. And then when I got to right about here, he yelled from behind me to the side of me. He said, yo, you got a problem? And I turned around, and I said, no, I don't have a problem, man.
I'm gonna be the kid. What the is your problem? You say what you said.
I don't have a problem.
And at that point, nothing else was said. What did you say the first time he hit you? There was no conversation prior. Okay, we're good. Open up your eyes. Nothing at all. This right here is where George Zimmerman says he shot Trayvon Martin. There are no street lamps here. The only light is what comes from the windows of these homes beside him.
I think they're yelling help, but I don't know. So you think he's yelling help? All right, what is your...
And tomorrow we'll retrace the path that Trayvon Martin took that night, follow his last footsteps from the 7-Eleven to the infamous T where he was shot and killed. That's tomorrow on HLN After Dark. But tonight, our bold question, Would George Zimmerman have called police if Trayvon Martin were white? We'll talk about that next.
As we no doubt know, this is a self-defense case. As a result of that, at issue will be, did George Zimmerman have to defend himself? He's made a number of statements to the police about his conduct and about his need to defend himself on this day. Now, in making those statements, prosecutors will be going over every statement that he makes to parse and to analyze, looking for any inconsistency. And if there are inconsistencies, they will use it to his disadvantage. This is why we say, don't make any statement at all.
You're just walking forward in the grass, not on the sidewalk. I just said something's off. So that's why I
Okay. You know, you're going to come under a lot of scrutiny over this, correct? Okay. The profiling aspect of the whole thing. Had this person been white, would you have felt the same way?
Yes.
Okay. Gotta ask that.
And that is George Zimmerman himself answering our bold question. Would George Zimmerman have called police if Trayvon Martin were white? Let me go to Yale Galanter, a great criminal defense attorney joining us from Colorado tonight. Yale, what do you think? Do you think if Trayvon Martin were white, George Zimmerman makes the same phone call to police?
Honestly, Vinny, I don't, but there's certainly no evidence in this case that the phone call to police was racially motivated, and there's certainly nothing in this case that tends to show that George Zimmerman was profiling Trayvon Martin because he was black.
All right. Kenya, what do you think?
I think he would not have called the police if Trayvon were white. If Trayvon were clearly a Caucasian teen with a skateboard in his arm, he probably would have stopped him and asked him where he lost.
But the history of the calls show that he would call on everybody. I mean, it's not one-sided that he only called on African-American kids. He did not like kids. It seems as though he had something against teenagers in particular.
Vinny, the distinction here is not just the call, because if he had only called, we wouldn't be sitting here discussing this case today. The question is, why did you pursue this young man, and especially after you were told by police dispatch,
that's part of the ultimate question.
We didn't need you to. So
right.
It's not the fact that he called, okay, be a good neighbor, call, but when he says
I think it goes to the heart of this whole thing.
Then he gets out and runs after him.
Judge Alex,
think that's a problem.
I think it gets to the heart of the whole thing. You know, would George Zimmerman have called if Trayvon Martin were white? Gets to a lot of what the prosecution is alleging in this case.
Well, I think, you know, they haven't really focused on it to that extent up until now. There's always been an undercurrent of race in this case, but it's about to become front stage center, because in order to convict him of second-degree murder, they have to show that he did an act that resulted in Trayvon's death and that that act was done as a result of ill will, spite, hatred, malice, or evil intent. He didn't know Trayvon. So what are they going to say? He hated burglars? Well, a jury's going to sympathize with that. So the only way they can go that I can see, unless Yale sees something different, is say he's a racist, he's a flat-out racist, and that's why he killed him. And that, like Yale said, they're going to have to come up with evidence on that. And the calls, if you go with the calls and the calls end up showing that he did call predominantly African Americans, that, you know, Jean Casares made a great point a second ago to me, and she said there is a counter argument to that the defense will make, which is how many of those people did he shoot?
All right. Now, before our jury votes on our bold question tonight, would George Zimmerman have called police if Trayvon were white? It's time to reveal what's in my mystery box tonight. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, take a look. And here it is. Take a close-up look at it. It's a brand new book available this week on Amazon for $3.99. The author, George Zimmerman's father, Robert Zimmerman Sr. The title of this book, Florida v. Zimmerman, Uncovering the Malicious Prosecution of My Son George. And now I will read an excerpt from this book. Many of George's closest and most trusted friends are African American. Although the FBI interviewed dozens of George's friends, neighbors, co-workers, and acquaintances, there is a tremendous amount of evidence that George is absolutely not a racist in any sense of the word. Ryan?
All right, let's put it to our jury. Now, our jury, our selected jury, are the six right in front. So we'll have just you vote on this one. Our bold question, would George Zimmerman have called the police if Trayvon Martin were white? Yes or no? A few yeses, and a couple of no's. Okay, you say yes.
Yes, I believe that he would have made a call just because he felt that he was suspicious of the person, and he would have been even more aggressive about the call if he, knowing he was black, of course, but if he had been a white person, I think that he would have still called.
Okay, and you're studying for your doctorate, so you can get into his mind a little bit. Now, George, you say no.
No, I don't think so. I think it was underlying racial profiling to do with this. I just think Trayvon looked suspicious, and I think because of that, he, because of his race possibly as well, what he was wearing, those types of things, contextual things, he would not have called him a white person.
Okay, so you believe there was some profiling there, and if the jury, the eventual jury in Zimmerman feels the same way, not a good sign for George Zimmerman. We'll have more coming up.
Let's talk strategy for 1 minute. The prosecution in this case is going to say, why get out of the car? Why pursue him? Why not follow the instruction to leave him alone and let the police handle their business? The defense, however, will say that's not the issue. The issue is he was under attack. And at the time he was under attack, following him or not, he took the only appropriate step necessary, and that was to protect his life by taking Trayvon Martin's. Which side will prevail? We will see when that jury's selected and the arguments begin.
Our bold question. Would Zimmerman have called police if Trayvon Martin were white? We asked you online. 38% said yes. 62% said no.
That's an interesting number. That kind of breaks down the way our jury in studio is breaking down. But let's get to this. Your question answered in just 15 seconds from our experts.
All right, let's start with Twitter and begin with Dolphin. Will the prosecution be able to bring up the various stories Zimmerman told police about what happened that night?
Statements made by the defendant to police. Can they come in? Kenya, 15 seconds.
Absolutely. As long as George Zimmerman was apprised of his rights, he wasn't under any duress, and he spoke freely, then those statements can come in.
All right.
All right, another one on Twitter. Is it normal for so many potential jurors in a small place like Sanford, Florida, to know so little of the case, especially a case that has gotten so much attention? That's from Lindy.
All right, let's send that over to Joey Jackson. Joey Jackson, 15 seconds.
No, it's abnormal, and that's why they had this whole pre-jury screening process to ensure that the jurors they get can be fair, can be impartial, and can adjudicate the case on the merits and the facts presented and not the media.
Just before the buzzer.
All right, good job. Now, Facebook. Let's take a look. Why would Zimmerman yell for help when he was the one with the gun? If he was truly in fear for his life, wouldn't he at least try to scare Martin with the gun first and not just yell for help? That's from Neff.
All right, Yale Galanter, explain that one in 15 seconds.
Human nature. He's getting his head pounded in. He's already had his nose broken. He's down on the ground. He's wet. Trayvon picks up his shirt, sees the gun. He's yelling, help, help, help. He doesn't want to shoot him. And out of desperation, as their last attempt to save himself, he fires into his chest.
All right.
Okay, another one from Facebook. This is from Ann. Could George Zimmerman have given himself those injuries after he shot Trayvon?
Self-inflicted. Ashley Merchant.
Well, I like to say anything is possible, of course, and you're asking could. So anything is possible, but it's very unlikely that he caused these injuries himself. And I can tell you, if there's evidence that he caused these injuries himself, the prosecution is going to be all over that.
All right, well done, Ashley.
All right, another from Facebook. This from Krista. Does anyone know what Trayvon Martin was doing that night and why he would have been hanging out on Frank Taffy's lawn? What was he doing in front of this guy's house who he didn't know?
Does anyone know? I know. I was there, ladies and gentlemen. What he was doing was coming back from 7-Eleven, and if you walk that route, which we will retrace for you tomorrow night here on After Dark, you'll see the quickest way to get back inside that gated community is to cut through Frank Taffy's side yard and end up on his front yard.
Okay. Just in time, by the way. Jane says, what evidence is there that race played a role in this?
Holly Hughes, 15 seconds.
Okay, the prosecution is going to argue that the lack of anything else suspicious. The young man is talking on his cell phone. They're going to say, okay, so what? What burglar approaches your house talking to his girl on the cell phone? Yeah, baby, I'm just getting ready to break into this joint. There's no other reason. He can't give a reason.
All right. Another one from HLNTV.com. Has Zimmerman talked about why he carried a gun with him to go to the store? Does it matter?
All right,
That's from Linda.
Linda, that one I'm going to send over to Ryan.
Okay, a couple reports here said that he got a gun to ward off stray dogs in the area. That's number one. And carrying the gun, he said he had it on the inside of his waistband, didn't even realize it was there. That's according to George Zimmerman.
Okay, we've got one more question.
One more on HLNTV.com. Barb says, will all of the 911 calls be played in court? The calls from Zimmerman and from neighbors.
Let's get a ruling from the judge in 15 seconds. Judge Alex.
It's only likely that they will all be played in court if they add something to the prosecution's case or the defense. There's no need for all of the evidence to be played, just the relevant evidence that's necessary for conviction or to raise the defense.
But you can see all the evidence on HLNTV.com.
That's right.
By the way. Hey, coming up, you're also going to see a preview of my interview. I sat down with Trayvon Martin's dad, Tracy. We sat down together, went through a very emotional interview. We'll show another piece of that, and then you'll see the whole thing tomorrow night here on After Dark.
Getting justice, clearing my son's name up, protecting his legacy, not letting his name continuously be dragged through the mud, not letting his name be in vain, not letting his death be in vain, and most of all, just this case is to me, says that it's not okay for vigilantes to kill our kids and get away with it.
Trayvon Martin's father talks about the trial for the man who killed his son, George Zimmerman. You can watch my two-part interview with Tracy Martin tomorrow and Thursday night right here on HLN After Dark. That's 10 p.m. Eastern, only here on HLN. Ryan?
All right. You know, earlier we got a vote from our jury. Now let's talk to our excused jurors. Here's how it works. On the side over here, these are the jurors. These three right here were excused by the prosecution. Over there, you three excused by the defense. Let me ask you the same question. Would George Zimmerman have called police if Trayvon Martin were white? Yes or no? Okay. Overwhelming yeses and one no. Okay, let me talk to the defense strike first here, who says no.
I'm actually torn. I do think that he called the police for every little thing. However, I do think that race did play a part in this. So I'm torn, actually.
Okay, so you're torn. You say yes, though.
Absolutely.
See, an excuse from the jury. Go ahead, why?
Yeah, he called the police for a dog. He didn't kill the dog. He called the police for an open garage. So he would have called the police for any reason. But the point is, none of those people, the dog didn't die. The people who had the garage door open, they didn't die. Trayvon's not here.
Okay, all right. So it's more about the fact that he called a lot. That's why he did it. And let me talk to our lawyers over here. This is our lawyer block. Both lawyers right here. You say yes.
I couldn't say it any better than he did. He had a predilection for making phone calls to the police, and that was what he did on a routine basis.
Okay, and I was looking to call out Ashley and Holly about maybe they made some mistakes, but it seems like everybody's talking about the frequency.
I didn't know that until tonight, actually. And seeing that, I was surprised, and that changed my mind. I would have said no before, but seeing his calls definitely changed my mind.
Holly Hughes, Ashley Merchant, I wonder how you feel about the strikes that you made. Probably feel pretty good, huh?
Oh, yeah, I'm still real happy.
Feeling really good about the strikes, although I would have challenged Holly Hughes' strikes on the basis of sex and race.
Interesting.
And I would have had a race-neutral reason for every single one of those beautiful ladies.
She would have.
Let me get one more thought from our law student here. I always like to talk to the law students. They're our future, right, Penny? What did you think?
You know, it's the same thing. He called overwhelming amount of times, and it just seems like he needed something to do. You don't need this kind of guy patrolling the neighborhood.
Yeah, and you know what? You got to think if the jurors feel the same way, he's got a really big problem because it seems for a lot of people like more than what a neighborhood watch person should be doing, Vinny, but then other people feel differently.
Yeah, let me ask you about that because I think that's a big issue here. And when I first heard about this story, it just seems and sounds like an overzealous neighborhood watch guy. How do you deal with that at trial? How does that issue play? Who does it help?
Well, obviously, the defense is going to say that he's a concerned citizen. He's a neighborhood watch guy. He's trying to protect the citizens from what the police couldn't do. What the defense needs to do, Vinny, is they have to get jurors who are going to follow the law. Remember, this is a very, very difficult case for the prosecution because the prosecution has to prove that it wasn't self-defense And I don't know how they get over the broken nose and the contusions on the back of his head, because it's not like there's any evidence that they were self-inflicted. So Trayvon Martin had to put them there. And that's really the biggest hurdle for the prosecution. They can certainly try to play the race card. There's no evidence of that. They can try to play the overzealous neighborhood watch card.
Yeah, let me just ask Joey before we run out of time here. Joey Jackson, really quickly, what do you think about the issue of George Zimmerman and all the calls that he made through the years?
You know, I think it'll establish that here's someone who was very overzealous, who was attempting to really watch his neighborhood and take it to the extreme. However, the defense can use that to say that he was a concerned citizen doing his duty, doing his job, and that further justified what he did that night, which was to follow Trayvon Martin.
All right.